They are not your friends. They're there to make money.
Tim Caulfield explored these themes in his documentary, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which aired on CBC. He is a professor at the University of Alberta and also an expert on misinformation. Great to see you again, Tim.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so why dig into this topic?
Oh, I think that clip really highlights why I was drawn to this. This is a major phenomenon. And since we did the doc, it's become, I think, a bigger phenomenon. And just think about it in the context of politics, which really wasn't our focus, but I think it played a large role in what happened in the United States. But of course, as that clip highlights, it's also having a huge impact on mental health, on physical health, on people's sense of where they belong in the world. And I think the evidence tells us it's pulling people into some pretty dark corners.
You talked to so many different men and experts, Tim, in your doc. What surprised you the most?
So you get these really constructive ideas, and we heard this consistently, that, there's no definition of being a man. It's, whatever you make of it. But you also get the sense that some people feel lost, as we heard in that first clip, right? And the manosphere gives them a home. It gives them a community. And while short term that might feel comforting, long term we know it's associated with real problems.
Tim, what type of misinformation are these influencers spreading?
The idea that we should all adhere to sort of this regressive traditional view of masculinity is problematic. And then there are a whole bunch of, for example, health issues that are tethered to that view of masculinity. Contrary to the promise of the manosphere, becoming more masculine, becoming more manly is not going to make you healthier. On the contrary, in fact, often the manosphere, they've pushed ideas like don't use sunscreen, it's not manly. Wrong. Don't eat fruits and vegetables. That's not manly. Wrong. It's okay to eat lots and lots of red meat, embrace the carnivore diet. Wrong. These are things that just aren't supported by the body of evidence, but the manosphere presents it as if it's fact.
You were traveling around North America for the CBC doc, talking with all kinds of men, many on the extremes. Now, one group featured in the film has some unusual rituals. Take a look.
Is it true that you drink urine?
Oh, yeah.
So some people think drinking your own urine will make you more manly.
Yeah. Have you tried drinking your pee?
I have not drank my own pee. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. That's not one of them.
So for me, it's like an act of self-love.
I gotta say, also, you're very good at multitasking. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Tim, your face says it all. How concerned are you about that messaging, though?
Yeah, not a shy peer either, right? I mean, that was hot off the tap. I'm very concerned about it. And I think, interviewing that particular influencer is also a really important lesson. He's a very engaging individual. You can see why individuals are drawn to him. He's a real character, very warm. And despite that, a lot of the messaging is problematic. First, you don't drink your own pee.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. But of course, they have a lot of other bits of advice, from supplements that they're selling to extreme diets that can be really harmful. And often, I think this is important to highlight, they also push unrealistic body image goals.
Do you think these influencers believe what they're selling, or they're just trying to be provocative?
You're going to hate my response, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think it's on a continuum. I think there are some that genuinely believe it. That individual, that influencer, I think he kind of believed it. He really he fell down the rabbit hole. And now he was living in the rabbit hole, and he was pulling other people in. But I think a lot of them are full on grifters. A lot of the influencers online, they're selling supplements. They know there's an audience out there. An audience that they can play to, and they're doing that. And the other thing that happens, there's very well known, and I'm not going to say names here, influencers, including in the science space, that have discovered that the manosphere is a very profitable audience, and so they've shifted to cater to that audience.
Wow. Tim, I was so fascinated in your doc that you included your sons in the narrative. I mean, that's a very personal choice. Why was that important to you?
I was hesitant to do that. I try not to include my family in any of my public facing work, but they were interested in doing it, and I also thought it was important to highlight. Look, I have sons. I can relate to the challenges that both parents have, but also that young adults have. And the other reason I thought including my sons would be interesting is they're a little bit different generations. My eldest son, kind of not the TikTok generation, I'll put it that way.
Sure.
And my younger son, very much so, right? So they had a different experience growing up, and it's reflected with their interface with the manosphere.
I remember this, image in the doc where you and your son are sitting at the nail salon. You pointed out that you would never have done that with your father. So even in
Yeah.
your generation, I mean, there's been changes, massive changes when we talk about the word masculine.
Yeah, my father would have been horrified by that, and my elder son, no problem at all. Like, it's just something completely normal that he does on a regular basis. We had a great time together, so I think that's fantastic, right? So I think it's important. The manosphere is a problem, but I also think we need to celebrate the evolution and the progress that has happened.
How do we combat, Tim, these harmful messages online that, have become very mainstream?
A lot of it is debunking the misinformation that is used to support the area, and you do this kind of thing on your show. This sounds trivial, but to remind people that eating more red meat is not going to make you healthier, right? Drinking your own urine is not going to make you more manly. Unproven peptides are not going to make you stronger and more attractive. Those little things, I think, help. It sounds like a small piece of the puzzle, but I think it's an important piece of the puzzle. And the other thing we need to do is, yes, we need to create spaces where some men feel lost. They want to be heard, and we need to create spaces, social spaces, where they can find constructive, healthy communities.
At the end of your doc, you asked a question to many of your experts about what is an ideal man. Do you have an answer to that question now?
I love the idea that there is no ideal man, right? There is, and that's okay. That's exactly how it should be, and we should support people in whatever journey they want to take.
What would you say to young men out there who are online, who might look at some of these mega influencers as their heroes, Tim?
They are not your friends. They're there to make money. They're there to make a brand. They're there to sell products. And almost everything that they're pushing is not supported on evidence and is regressive and pulling not only you, but society in the wrong direction. Having said that, I think it's important to hear these individuals, to have empathy, and to try to point them in the right direction.